Last time, 2 sets of cousins, 1 throne, a rigged dice game, and a 13-year exile that everybody completed perfectly. Then the Pandavas came back and asked for their kingdom, and Krishna offered Duryodhana one last off-ramp. Just give them 5 villages.
Not enough land to balance on the tip of a needle.
So now, the most reasonable family in history will settle a real estate dispute the only way they know how, with the single largest war the universe had ever seen. Mahabharata. Part 2. The War. Okay, before anyone fights, you need an army. And in ancient India, you measured armies in a unit called the Akshauhini. One Akshauhini is about 218,000 men, 21,000 chariots, 21,000 elephants, and 65,000 horses. 18 of them showed up. Remember that number. 18. It's going to follow this story around like a bad smell. Both sides went shopping for allies, and the draft picks were brutal. Duryodhana got the bigger army, 11 Akshauhinis, plus almost every legend of the old generation. Grandfather Bhishma, their old teacher Drona, and Karna, still loyal, still furious, finally getting his war. The Pandavas got the smaller army, 7 Akshauhinis, and the one ally who would turn out to matter more than all 11 of Duryodhana's, Krishna. Which brings us to the single best deal in the entire epic. Both Duryodhana and Arjun showed up at Krishna's door at the same time, asking him to join their side. So Krishna offered a choice.
On one side, my entire army, millions of soldiers. On the other side, just me, and I won't pick up a single weapon. Choose.
The army. Obviously the army. Give me the millions of soldiers. You take the unarmed guy. Thank you.
He picked the army. He left the actual god of the universe standing on the doorstep.
I don't want the soldiers. I want you. Will you drive my chariot?
And God said yes. The Supreme Being agreed to be a chariot driver. Hold that thought. It becomes the heart of this whole story. Oh, and one more draft day disaster. The Pandavas' own uncle, King Shalya, was marching to fight for them. But Duryodhana secretly set up lavish rest stops along his whole route, food, wine, the works, and let Shalya assume his nephews had arranged it.
Whoever threw me this incredible party, name your reward. It's yours.
Funny you should ask. It was me. So, you fight on my side now. Thanks.
He got tricked onto the enemy team by a buffet. This man is a king. Now, this wasn't going to be a free-for-all. Before a single arrow flew, both sides sat down and agreed to the rules of righteous war. Fight only from sunrise to sunset. Only equals duel equals. Never strike a man who's unarmed, fleeing, or surrendered. Write those down. Because over the next 18 days, we are going to break every single one of them. Duryodhana made grandfather Bhishma his supreme commander. Bhishma accepted, with conditions.
I will lead your army, but I love those 5 boys like grandsons. I will not kill the Pandavas, and I will not fight beside Karna.
So Karna, insulted, refused to fight as long as Bhishma led. He sat out the first 10 days. Remember that. It matters. And Bhishma added one stranger condition. There was a warrior named Shikandi, born a woman, raised a warrior, whom Bhishma vowed he would never, ever fight. File that away. That single refusal is the only crack in the most unkillable man on the field. And so, on a vast plain called Kurukshetra, the 2 largest armies in history lined up across from each other at dawn. The great warriors raised their conch shells. Krishna blew Panchajanya. Arjun blew Devadatta. The sound shook the earth. And then, with both armies roaring, Arjun, the greatest warrior alive, asked Krishna to drive his chariot into the empty space between them. He looked across the field, and he saw his grandfather, his teacher, his cousins, his friends, all of them, waiting to die.
I can't do this, Krishna. What victory is worth killing my own family? I would rather die than fight this war.
And he put down his bow. The greatest archer in the world sat down in his chariot and refused to fight. What Krishna said to him next, in that gap between 2 armies, became the Bhagavad Gita, one of the most revered spiritual texts in human history.
You grieve for those who need no grief. The body dies, the soul does not. It is never born, and it never ends. Do your duty without clinging to the reward. You have a right to your action, never to its fruits. Act, and surrender the rest to me.
And when Arjun asked who he truly was, Krishna showed him, for one overwhelming moment, his infinite cosmic form. Every world, every being, all of time, at once. Arjun understood. He picked his bow back up. Day 1. 18 armies collided, and leading the charge was Bhishma, who had a problem nobody else on that field had. He could not be killed. Long ago, he'd been granted a power. He would die only when he himself chose to. No weapon could take him against his will. So for 9 days, the unkillable grandfather carved through the Pandava army, while carefully, lovingly, never landing a fatal blow on the 5 brothers themselves. It was so bad that Krishna, who had vowed not to fight, twice leapt off the chariot in a rage to attack Bhishma himself, and Arjun had to beg him to stop. The Pandavas were losing. So on the night before day 10, they did something extraordinary. They walked into the enemy camp, to Bhishma's own tent, and asked him a question.
Grandfather, we cannot win while you live, so I have to ask you, how do we defeat you?
I am tired, child. I will not raise a weapon against Shikhandi, who was born a woman. Put Shikhandi in front of you, and I will lower my bow.
The grandfather told his grandsons exactly how to kill him, because he was ready to go. Day 10. Arjun rode out behind Shikhandi. Bhishma saw them, and kept his vow, and lowered his weapons. And Arjun, weeping, shot, arrow after arrow, until there was no part of the old man left unpierced. But the unkillable man did not die. He fell back onto the very arrows that pierced him, and they held him up off the ground. A bed of arrows. And there he chose to stay, alive by his own will, to watch the rest of the war he could no longer stop. With Bhishma down, the old teacher Drona took command, and Duryodhana gave him a job. Don't kill Yudhishthira, capture him alive. The only thing standing in the way was Arjun. So the Kauravas lured him to the far side of the battlefield, which left the Pandava army unprotected. And Drona sprang his trap, the Chakravyuha, a spinning, spiral war formation almost no one alive knew how to break into. Almost no one. There was one person in the camp who knew the way in, Arjun's son, a teenager named Abhimanyu.
I can break the formation open. I learned how to get in. I never learned the way back out. But I'll do it.
The plan was simple. The boy cracks it open, the older warriors pour in behind him. Abhimanyu broke in, and the moment he was through, the Kauravas slammed the formation shut behind him and trapped the boy inside. Alone. 6 of the greatest warriors in the world surrounded one 16-year-old. They broke every rule of fair combat, and together, they killed him. When Arjun came back and learned his son was dead, surrounded, defenseless, something in him broke. He swore he would kill the man who sealed that trap, Jayadratha, by sunset the next day, or walk into fire himself. The next day, the Kauravas just hid Jayadratha and ran out the clock. As the sun touched the horizon, Krishna raised his hand and the sky went dark. Thinking the day was over and Arjun had failed, Jayadratha stepped out to gloat. The sun came back. Arjun had his shot. Now, Drona was the problem. While he held a weapon, he could not be beaten. So Krishna found the one thing that would make him put it down. Drona loved his son, Ashwatthama, more than life. So Bhima found an elephant that happened to be named Ashwatthama and killed it.
Ashwatthama is dead.
Drona froze. He didn't believe it. So he turned to the one man on that entire field who had never told a lie in his life, Yudhishthira.
You cannot lie. You have never lied. Tell me the truth. Is my son dead?
Ashwatthama is dead. The elephant.
But the words were drowned out by a blast of trumpets. Drona heard only the first part, from the man who could not lie. And legend says that in that instant, Yudhishthira's chariot, which had always floated above the earth because of his perfect honesty, silently dropped to the ground. Drona, believing his son was gone, laid down his bow, sat down in the middle of the battle, and closed his eyes. And, defenseless, he was killed. And now, finally, the man who had been waiting his entire life took command of the Kaurava army. Karna. But here's the secret this whole war was built on. Before the fighting started, Krishna had gone to Karna privately and told him the truth about who he was.
You were never a charioteer's son, Karna. You are Kunti's firstborn. The Pandavas are your younger brothers. Switch sides, and the throne is yours.
Then his real mother, Kunti, came to him herself, the mother who had floated him down a river as a baby, and begged him to come home.
You gave me away. Duryodhana gave me everything. I won't betray him now. But I promise you this, mother. Of your sons, I will only kill Arjun. You'll still have 5.
So the Pandavas went to war against their own eldest brother, and never knew it. Only Krishna, Kunti, and Karna himself carried that secret onto the field. The fighting now was savage, And it was here that Bhima caught Dushasana, the man who had dragged Draupadi into that court and kept the terrible vow he had sworn that day. 13 years of rage finally answered. It was as horrifying as it was deserved. Nobody on that field cheered. And then came the duel the entire epic had been building toward. The two greatest archers alive. The two brothers who didn't know they were brothers. Arjun and Karna. They were perfectly matched. Arrow met arrow in midair. Neither could land a finishing blow. And then, all of Karna's past came due at once. A curse from his old teacher made him forget his ultimate weapon. And his chariot wheel sank deep into the soft earth and stuck fast.
Wait, my wheel. I'm unarmed, Arjun. The rules of war say you cannot strike a defenseless man.
The rules. Where were the rules when 6 men killed your son? When they dragged Draupadi into that hole? Finish it, Arjun.
And as Karna struggled with the wheel of his chariot, Arjun raised his bow and let the arrow fly. The river baby from part 1, the abandoned son, the loyal friend, the secret eldest brother, died in the dirt, killed by the one brother he was allowed to kill. After Karna fell, the Kaurava army came apart fast. Shakuni, the smiling uncle whose loaded dice had started all of this, was hunted down and killed by the youngest Pandava, Sahadeva. The dice were finally done. And Bhima worked his way through Duryodhana's brothers, all 100 of them, exactly as he'd promised years ago in that dice hall, until there was just one cousin left, Duryodhana, alone. His army gone, his brothers gone. So the proud prince, who would not give up a needle point of land, ran and hid at the bottom of a lake, holding his breath, hoping it would all blow over. It did not blow over. They found him, and they invited him out for one final, fair fight. Duryodhana chose Bhima and chose maces. And here's the thing, at the mace, Duryodhana was actually the better fighter. He was winning. The rules of a mace duel were clear. You never strike below the waist, and Bhima could not break through. So Krishna, watching, quietly slapped his own thigh. A signal, a reminder of a vow Bhima had screamed in that dice hall 13 years before. Bhima swung low and shattered Duryodhana's thigh, the exact thigh he had sworn to break. It was a foul blow. It ended the war. And far away, Draupadi finally tied up the hair she had left loose for 13 years, the hair she swore she would not bind until this day. The Pandavas had won. After 18 days, the war was over. They had everything back. That night, they celebrated away from camp. And that was the only reason they lived. Because Drona's son, Ashwatthama, half mad with grief over how his father had died, crept into the sleeping Pandava camp in the dark, and he burned it to the ground. He killed everyone asleep inside, including all 5 of Draupadi's sons. The Pandavas won the war and lost their entire next generation in a single night. When the sun rose, there was nothing left to win. Of the 18 armies that marched onto that field, the texts say only a handful of men walked off it. Around 1.5 million dead. An entire generation of warriors gone. And the women of both sides walked out among the bodies to find their husbands, their fathers, their sons. Gandhari, Duryodhana's mother, who had worn a blindfold her whole life to share her blind husband's darkness, took hers off to see her 100 dead sons.
You are God, Krishna. You could have stopped all of this. You let it happen. So one day, your people too will turn on each other, and you will die alone.
And Krishna, who could have argued, simply accepted her curse. Because she was right that it had a cost. Everything does. And then Kunti, finally, told her 5 sons the secret she had carried their whole lives.
The warrior you fought all this time, Karna. He was my first son. He was your eldest brother. Give him his rights.
Yudhishthira, who had spent the whole war hunting a man he now learned was his own brother, never really recovered from that. Yudhishthira was crowned king of a kingdom of ashes and widows. He sat on the throne he had won, and he wanted to give it all back. All of it. The dice game, the exile, the war, 1.5 million dead, had started with 2 sets of cousins who could not share a house. And up on his bed of arrows, the grandfather, Bhishma, held on through it all. And finally, when the season turned, allowed himself to die. The good side won. They just had to become the thing they were fighting to do it. That's not a footnote you forget. And as for Krishna, and the curse a grieving mother laid on a god. Well, that's a whole other ending. But that's a story for another time.